So let's look at the different protection layers that you get if you have different combinations of single sign-on and password management. If you're not using single sign-on and not using password management, that's the worst thing that you could do right today. So you have no visibility and control over access across the organization. You're exposed to data breaches because employees are using weak and reused passwords, and you have no proper deprovisioning process for users because you don't really know what passwords users were exposed to in the past and what they currently have access to in a very clear way all the time. So if you're using single sign-on but not using a password manager, that's already a very good step. So you get partial visibility and control over access across the org, and you're still partially exposed to data breaches through the passwords that are still being used across the organization, and you have a partial deprovisioning flow. If you're using single sign-on, that's perfect. You just cut the user, it's a clear cut, they're out, but passwords that they still have access to, you don't have a lot of visibility over that. So you might have an idea that this person in marketing should have a Dropbox account, should have access to the Instagram account, which needs to be rotated, but over time, users tend to have access to more things, and there's, again, the idea of shadow IT and users having their own access to resources that you might not be aware of that they're accessing using passwords. Now, the best combination is obviously single sign-on with MFA and password management. That's going to provide you with full visibility and control over access across the organization, because single sign-on, you have clear visibility over that. And then the password manager should allow you to get an idea of what passwords are being used and shared across the organization. You have limited exposure to data breaches because users really need to get out of their way to avoid storing the passwords that they're using on the side in the password manager. If they do store them in a password manager, then security dashboards should show you weak, reused, compromised passwords. And that's going to limit your exposure a lot to data breaches and also to data loss if someone leaves the company and they're the only person who have access to a specific service. And finally, you get complete and thorough deprovisioning of users. So you can cut off the single sign-on access, and then you can create a deprovision access to the password manager and generate a report to see which passwords users had access to over time. So that's by far the best combination. Password management should be used in 2022 to complement the gaps that single sign-on introduces, which is created by vendors that paywall single sign-on or don't support it altogether, which is not a great thing and is a thing that should change, in my opinion.
Please subscribe and check out more content from us.